Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. I'm your host, Scotty, and today I'm joined by special guest Marc Gonzalez of the False Nine podcast to help us break down last night's 1-1 draw, or I guess yesterday afternoon's 1-1 draw against Toronto FC. The Herons were in control of their own destiny in the Supporter Shield race, and now they are no longer. A couple results helped Inter Miami last night, and we'll talk about that at the end of this episode. But first, we're going to break down everything that went on with this game and give out a couple of awards. But before all of that, Marc, thank you so much for being here. How are you feeling on this lovely Sunday early evening?
Feeling great, man. Getting ready to dive into this game breakdown, and thank you for having me on.
Yes, I am sorry. We had planned to have you on long ago for this episode, and I wish it was a more entertaining and interesting game to talk about. But we're going to do our best to find what's interesting about it.
Yeah.
I did rewatch the game today. I will say I don't come away with a lot of new thoughts based on the rewatch. It was not a particularly fascinating game, and so we're just going to have to come up with some pretty creative awards for it to make up for it. But before we do, I want to mention this quickly. The 22 under 22 for the MLS came out yesterday, September 24th. Sorry, Wednesday, a couple days ago. And Noah Allen is ranked 17th. So congratulations to him. This kind of flew past my radar until the awards went in. But what I will say is that I have a lot of thoughts about the 22 under 22 this year, and I think it relates to a lot of topics that go around Inter Miami. And so we're going to do a pretty more sizable episode on the 22 under 22 for 2025 next week, because this week is very busy, but we will have more thoughts on that as it comes. But aside from that, Marc, going into this game yesterday, you knew Inter Miami controlled their own destiny, but this also felt, to me at least, like a trap game. How are you feeling about it going in?
Going in, I kind of had a sensation that it also too could have been a trap game, specifically because you're playing a team against Toronto that really didn't have anything to fight for. They've drawn the last 6 games, I believe. So it was, if you didn't play your best game, you could come out there with a loss or even a draw. And we saw that happening. And I thought, if we don't have our best lineup, if we're not on our A game, if we're not clicking on all cylinders like we did against New York City FC, it's a trap game written all over. Those were my initial thoughts going in.
Yeah, and I remember last year we went to Toronto, second to last game this season, and yes, there was some rotation, but the ball didn't bounce quite right. The field was a little tough. As someone in the chat reminded us yesterday, they play Canadian football there, so the Toronto Argonauts kind of beat up the field as the fall gets going. It was pristine yesterday, and the weather was pretty nice as well. So really no environmental excuses other than the fact that it is a road game in MLS, and those are always pretty difficult. The lineup, same lineup as Wednesday night with one change. Matteo Silvetti, he has gone to the Argentine U20 national team camp in preparation for the Under-20 World Cup. He was replaced by Tadeo Allende. First off, let me get your thoughts on that decision, considering everyone else that was available.
I think it was the obvious choice, given the pattern of Mascherano starting Allende and him being his trusted right winger per se, and having like the partnership of De Paul and Busquets. I didn't feel Yannick Bright was going to make that start. Thought it was going to be more Allende and trying to get more attacking mindsets to start the game.
But did you think it was the right decision, like personally?
Personally, oh. I did. I think based off how we came out against New York City and what we wanted to establish and what we wanted to carry over into this game, felt like that same sort of game plan, which was use the wings, use the middle, attack from all sorts of directions, and get width on the pitch and get high up in vertical runs. And that's why I felt he started Allende instead of anyone else in the midfield or any other player.
Yeah, I think, thinking about Javier Mascherano's sort of history and where he likes to play his players, I think it was probably the obvious choice, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. But considering the talent level of some of the other options available, specifically Telasco Segovia, I think it was disappointing to see that lineup, but ultimately I don't want to say proof effective, but Tadeo Allende did have an impact. Let's get into the game because it will go by quickly. 12th minute, Baltasar Rodriguez had a nice shot. That was rejected by Sean Johnson. 29th minute, Busquets finds Messi in the box for an opportunity. And this is the first big one from Sean Johnson on Lionel Messi, a Lionel Messi shot, but his second of the game already. And then another one in the 44th minute, another really nice chance for Messi, but it's again saved by Sean Johnson. First half, 45 minutes. I know we'll get to the Allende goal right before half, but how did you feel about the first half? Felt kind of back and forth with Inter Miami getting the better opportunities, in my opinion, but Sean Johnson kind of kept them in the game with a couple key saves.
Yeah, I agree. There were points in that first half, and moments in that first half where Miami kind of engaged sort of this half-hearted press or sort of this press and trying to pin them back. They got a couple turnovers, one specifically to De Paul, who plays Busquets, who then plays Messi, and I think that's the one where he shoots right-footed, and Sean Johnson makes that save. But I think Miami was really trying to take the front foot on that first half. We had 3 corners in the span of 12 minutes. One was a Messi Olympic goal attempt, and the other 2 were whipped in by De Paul, and then one by Messi. So I felt, we were on, trying to really break down that Toronto defense, and bringing Busquets into high up the pitch into the midfield, and Busquets trying to roaming around, and De Paul roaming around and trying to win the ball back, and Messi barking orders at Rodriguez and Baltasar to tuck in a bit and allowing Jordi Alba to play out wide. Felt the first 25, 30 minutes going to the 40th minute, Inter Miami were trying to find that first goal.
Yeah, and they created opportunities. I don't want to I know the general vibe from yesterday was it was kind of a lackluster event and a lackluster performance, but they created opportunities that on another day they would have put in the back of the net, and you could see a world where that ends up 2-0 at halftime, and Inter Miami kind of walks away through victory. It obviously doesn't happen. We mentioned a couple Sean Johnson saves, and those would come back in the second half, but it does lead us to what I thought was going to be probably the breaker, which comes in the first minute of first half stoppage time. Messi pushes it wide to Jordi Alba, and then Jordi Alba whips in a perfect cross to that back post for Tadeo Allende to head into the back of the net. And all of a sudden, Inter Miami, despite a few nice saves by Sean Johnson, a couple moments from Toronto, it was 1-0 Inter Miami, and it was going exactly like you would want it to go. You get a second in the second half early, and then you kind of just kill the game off. How'd you feel? What'd you think about that goal?
I thought it was a great play, and I think personally for me, seeing one go in after seeing Sean Johnson, make a couple good saves. I'm not gonna say there were spectacular saves, but he made a couple good saves. I thought maybe the floodgates would maybe open for this team heading into that second half, but the goal itself, Alba puts in a perfect ball, perfectly weighted to the back post. Allende able to beat his defender and slot it home. Speaking on Allende, there's been many times this season where he's missed that. It's gone wide. It's gone right at the keeper. He's just missed it completely. So it was good for him to get that goal right before stoppage time, and hopefully, picking up this team going into halftime and giving them what they needed, hopefully to start that second half.
Yeah. And again, you think about the circumstances of this game. Toronto FC is not a playoff team. They're not really fighting for anything. They're not really in contention for anything. It's a big crowd, and I'm sure that produced some energy for them because people will come out to see Lionel Messi. But this is what it's supposed to be. On the road, some things are going to go your way. Some things aren't going to go your way. You get a goal, you nick one, whether it's by hook or by crook, whether it's your star player, whether it's the guy that's struggling. You get the one goal, and that's sort of what gives you the momentum to hopefully kill the game off into the second half. So at halftime, this felt exactly like it was the plan. And even into the first 10 minutes of that second half, it was more of the same. I didn't think Toronto, even though they were creating... How do I put this? They were creating moments of potential danger. They weren't actually dangerous. They didn't have a ton of shots on goal. They didn't have a ton of opportunities that you would consider must hit or even sort of really good half chances. There's a couple shots from outside the box that go wide, a couple nice plays by Maxi Falcone and Noah Allen to sort of body off a defender. But aside from that 59th minute opportunity that they end up scoring, this was not a Toronto team that looked dangerous, in my opinion. But ultimately, they do get the breakthrough in the 59th minute. The ball goes into the box. This is going to be a hard one to narrate. The ball goes into the box. Eventually, it's Baltasar Rodriguez who tries to clear it, doesn't really clear it effectively, and the ball immediately comes right back into the box. It goes sort of down the wide channel to Richie Larea, who makes a run towards the byline, and then he whips it across between the legs of Maxi Falcone, and it's an easy tap in for Jordi Mihailovic. Inter Miami, all of a sudden, they're 1-0 lead, and maybe they're 3 points looking good. All of a sudden, it's gone. It's 1-1, and it's frustrating because it was an easy tap in.
Yeah, definitely a frustrating moment. I'll speak on Baltasar Rodriguez's attempted clearance. I mean, I think Inter Miami, we struggle to clear the ball at times, and we see that multiple times a game. This one just kind of bit us in the butt. For him, he's got to do a better job of getting the ball out of the box and into safety. Even if it has to go out of bounds for a throw in, I mean, you allow your defensive line to reset. But as it's sprayed out to the right side, Larea makes that run to the byline. Ian Frey kind of caught in no man's land in between Falcon, the ball, and Jordi Mihailovic, and just can't get a foot out. And it's an open tap in, and there, Inter Miami I sensed a feeling of, we kind of let this slip already. Can we get it back? It's all about getting it back now on the road in a game that feels like, it's going to be tougher than it should be.
Yeah, and you also get the sense, though, that no one was going to panic. I want to sit on that goal for a second, though. Baltasar Rodriguez with a poor clearance, I think. He pushes it out, but it goes right to a Toronto FC player who is able to put the entry ball right back into the final third and into a dangerous area. And then after that, what ends up happening is Larea makes that run to the byline. Maxi Falcone goes to cover. And Jordi Mihailovic, and I watched this a couple times to kind of understand how he became so wide open for the tap-in. He's sort of right next to Sergio Busquets, but Busquets is on the far side of Jordi Mihailovic, standing next to him. And Ian Frey is maybe a yard in front of them. And Ian Frey turns around and he sees Busquets with Jordi Mihailovic. So he kind of takes a couple steps forward to try and be a bigger factor in the play. But he actually turns around and sees Busquets with him. Busquets, on the other hand, sees there's a defender behind him. There's an attacker behind him. And he thinks Frey is going to stick with Jordi Mihailovic because he starts about a yard in front of him. So he kind of lets Jordi take a step forward into a dangerous area because he thinks his man is at the back post. And so it's a mix-up, and I don't necessarily want to blame either player because I don't know whose responsibility that ultimately would have been. But in the end, it's a breaking moment, and Jordi Mihailovic is open for the tap-in. I don't know. Did you have someone you thought was responsible for that?
I feel like I'm with you on this. Difficult to pinpoint exactly who's at fault. Both players kind of expecting the other player to track Mihailovic into that middle space of the penalty area, 6-yard box. Neither of them did that, and he ended up, with an easy tap in. So in there, it's very hard to communicate or difficult to communicate and pass off defenders or pass off attackers when they're so close and the ball is being whipped in already, instead of a set piece or a ball being whipped in from long. A lot of moving factors, tight spaces, and unfortunately for Inter Miami, Toronto got it right, and Mihailovic puts it away.
Yeah, Sir Octi says that first goal was on Frey, and I have no problem if anyone wants to put it on Ian Frey. It's just a communication breakdown where Frey goes to play the ball whipped in across the face of the keeper, and he's going to be in that spot to defend it. And of course, Busquets also thinks, let me just take that last man to prevent that from happening. And then, of course, Mihailovic gets open in the meantime. As after that, it didn't feel like panic mode for Inter Miami. They still felt like we have half an hour, we're going to make this happen. They do continue to create opportunities for the next 25 minutes or so. 76th minute, there was another really nice Messi opportunity that was denied by Sean Johnson. And then the 83rd minute, that's that set piece that's from just outside the box. He tries to whip it into that far post. Again, Sean Johnson with another nice save. And that's sort of how it went. I thought the last 10 minutes were a little lacking in intensity, But Inter Miami created plenty of chances in this game to go up and ultimately get that second goal. We talked about in the pregame show that Toronto has drawn a ton of games at 1-1, and maybe its first to 2 wins this game. And Inter Miami ultimately not able to break through, despite the fact that they put 9 shots, forced 5 saves out of Sean Johnson and 4 from inside the box. Like, they did what you wanted them to do against a non-playoff team, but ultimately that's not always how the cookie crumbles, right?
Yeah, I agree. When that goal, after that goal, I mean, there was no morale drop. I think there were times where they struggled to find the open passage of play and then had to recycle the ball back to the back line and then start over and things like that. But we had our chances. Messi had 3 by himself, I believe. The fourth one with a set piece. So it was just one of those days that, Sean Johnson made a couple good saves. They were able to clear their lines, and Inter Miami couldn't find that breakthrough goal to win the second.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I didn't think we played poorly in any real phase of play. They had one moment where we had a communication breakdown and they capitalized on it. But aside from that, I thought the defense played pretty well. I thought the goalkeeping play was pretty solid. The midfield wasn't as good as you would like, but I'm sure we'll talk about that more in the next few minutes. And then the attack, listen, they got into dangerous areas. Baltasar had an opportunity. Suarez had an opportunity. Messi had several opportunities. And it's just, a leg goes up and it makes the block or the keeper's on his game. And that's that can be all it takes, really.
Yeah, a keeper on his game at home will do it for you against a good MLS team.
Okay, let's talk about Toronto for a few minutes. I didn't expect us to be having a conversation about Toronto after this game, but they earned a draw and they looked solid. They rose up to the moment, I thought, in the individual seconds that mattered, especially Sean Johnson. He was great. So for me, Sean Johnson, player of the match, but really most of that team. There was a number of blocks that kind of come flying in that prevented Inter Miami from getting shots on target. Talk to me about what you saw from Toronto.
I felt, Toronto's attack, or Toronto in general, they try to focus a lot of their ball progression through the middle, through Cifuentes, and then through Jonathan Osorio into Etienne Jr. I thought they played a pretty good game by their standards, not allowing Inter Miami to really break them down all the way. Their defense, made a couple clearances, those blocks, goalkeeper, great saves, good saves, I should say. Richie Laryea, I felt, was their best player in the back line, really progressing the ball forward when he's able to. So, that this team has drawn 7 games in a row, but there seems to be something to build off for them going forward, and it'll be interesting what they do.
Yeah, 7 games in a row, by the way, MLS record. And 6 of them are by the scoreline of 1-1, which I find crazy. Okay. Inter Miami. I mean, Sean Johnson was great. Mihailovic gets the goal, but I agree with you. I thought it was the midfield that played really well. And then defenders made big plays in big moments. And when they didn't, their goalkeeper was there to protect them, which is kind of a nice thing. I wish we had that more often. Bigger question. Did Toronto earn a point, or did Inter Miami fail to earn a point, or earn 3 rather? Because these two teams on paper, Inter Miami's clearly a better team. Even on the road, you'd still expect Inter Miami to get 3 points. They were the favorite. They should have been the favorite. The 11 that Inter Miami put out there are more talented than the 11 that Toronto put out there. So why didn't it turn into 3 points? Is it because, in your opinion, Toronto earned it, or do you think it's Inter Miami kind of let them off the hook and it was more about what Inter Miami didn't do?
Yeah, I think we failed to get those 3 points more than anything. On the road in the MLS, in the playoffs, it gets tougher. And these are the games during the regular season that you need to win to prepare yourself for those games in the playoffs. And Inter Miami had those chances in the games that really, really matter. Not saying that this one didn't matter at all. This one mattered, and mattered tremendously for the Supporter Shield. You need to find those goals. Those shots need to be converted into goals. We need to be up 2-0 going into halftime, 3 in the second half. It is a game that Inter Miami should have won comfortably, I believe.
Okay, but that's on paper. That's like going into the game what you expect. But when you saw the game play out, is that still how you felt?
I still how I felt. We created the chances. We had the possession. We created the excuse me. We had passage of play through the middle, through the wide channels. Jordi Alba was getting forward. And Messi had clear cut chances. Busquets was finding the balls between the lines. So this had, when I was watching and still going back, Inter Miami had still deserved to win this game, or still should have won this game.
Yeah, but for me, that's why I want to give Toronto credit, because I thought Inter Miami did what they should have done, which is create chances and play solid defense and not have a ton of individual mistakes. And I didn't think any player was terrible or had a terrible performance or cost the team by just having a horrendous moment. And so for me, I kind of want to give Toronto credit. Their goalkeeper did what they needed him to do, and the midfield played well. And ultimately, when they had their one chance, they took advantage of it. So I guess my point is I came away with this without a lot of criticisms for Inter Miami. Sometimes you go on the road and you don't get 3 points because things don't go your way. And I don't feel like we need to reevaluate the system. I don't feel like we need to reevaluate the structure. I don't think we need to reevaluate who's in the starting 11 per se. It was just one of those games where we kind of played solid. No one played outstanding, and you don't get 3 points because of it, because the other team also came to play.
Yeah, that's a fair point to make. And Sean Johnson kept them in the game. So fair play to them in that aspect.
There was one thing you wanted to mention, because we were talking about this earlier today. Playing out from the back from Inter Miami and playing through the midfield, you have criticisms for it. Talk to me.
I would say it's major criticism. It's just things that I observe and would tweak a little bit, or give advice to. When Inter Miami tend to play out of the back and we possess the ball, and it's not such an out and out press from the other team. They're just keeping us in front. And Busquets drops into that center back position, and our right back and left back are pushed up high. We only have one midfielder roaming, and that turns into the Rodrigo de Paul. At that turn in time, we need more numbers in the midfield, because all they're going to do is just sit back and let de Paul have the ball, because there's no one else to pass to. You need to have Baltasar Rodriguez tuck in, Allende to tuck in, Messi to play at the center circle, and be able to play from the back line to the midfield, and then get those runners out and going once you're able to break their I guess sort of press, sort of half-hearted. I don't know how to say it. I guess it's their press and their defensive structure when they try to pin us back.
Yeah, you mentioned this last week too, but I think it's a new conversation, because a week ago we were talking about a midfield three with Yannick Bright, De Paul, and Busquets, and it's like the onus is on Bright and De Paul to be those guys, but Yannick Bright not on the field to start this game. And I agree with you. I don't think we were able to sort of cleanly cut through this Toronto midfield like we would have wanted to and hoped to, and kind of what we did Wednesday night with this same midfield partnership against NYCFC. But when there's only a midfield two, it's De Paul being asked to do a lot, and then beyond that, you're right. I think it's specifically on Baltasar Rodriguez to be the guy that can come back and help with that. He doesn't do that particularly well. He's a very attack-minded player. He wants to play high. He wants to be in dangerous positions, which is like, it's not a bad thing per se, not like as a natural trait. But if you want to fit into this Inter Miami team, you have to understand, like, Messi is the guy that gets to do that, and then behind him it's Suarez, and then behind him it's Jordi Alba. And so for Baltasar Rodriguez, he has to figure out how to fit into this team. He can't just play his best game because he's not the star of this team. He has to figure out how to make it work with everyone else. And so I agree with you. I think he has to have a much bigger role in ball progression than he took and assumed yesterday. Now, that doesn't mean, and to be clear, that doesn't mean he's a bad player. It's just part of being a new player into a team. He hasn't played a ton of minutes with these guys. He needs to figure that out, and I'm sure he will. But I agree with you. I thought that was pretty obvious last night, where, especially down that right side, and we'll talk more about the right side as we get into awards, you didn't have much, and so you're asking a lot from the middle of the field, and Toronto's midfield played well, and you were kind of outnumbered for much of this game. So I think that's a great point, and it's something that this team needs to figure out. If it's Baltasar being a bigger factor deeper, or if it's Telasco Segovia coming back into the starting 11, whatever it is, they need to figure that out, or going back to a final back three or whatever. I'm sorry, a midfield three, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You can also have Jordi Alba play as an inverted left back into, helping to create those channels and create those passing opportunities. But he's also high up the pitch because he likes to get up and attack. But
Yeah,
I'm
but
going to agree with, yeah,
to my
I'm going to
point,
agree.
yeah, right. And to my point, like Jordi Alba should be used in the way that maximizes Jordi Alba, not as the perfunctory player that comes in to figure out the rest of it. Right? That has to be what Baltasar Rodriguez does, in my opinion.
I agree. You unlock Baltasar there and allow Jordi Alba to run down that left side. It creates another passage of play, and you're able to break that press and defensive structure a little easier.
Yeah, and then, as far as Baltasar Rodriguez, he has the skill set you would imagine to be able to collect the ball and either make those forward passes, the progressive passes, or the progressive carries, because he is quick. He does have a tight hold on the ball. He's very technical. So he seems to have the skill set, but again, it's a matter of minutes and chemistry and watching film and sort of building into that. So I think he'll be fine, but that was certainly noticeable in this game. Anything else? Because it was not the most entertaining game, in my opinion, and I watched it twice. Or do you want to get to awards?
I don't think there was a lot, for us to really dissect in this game. It was not very exciting, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to awards. For those that don't know, we give out 6 awards after every game: a heron in the match, a heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. Because I went first last time. Actually, no. It's because I'm a gentleman. Mark, I will let you go first this time. Who do you have for the heron in the match?
Heron of the match goes to Jordi Alba. And I felt Jordi Alba has hit this run of games that he's been right behind Messi, our second best player, in the last 4 or 5 games, going back to the Seattle game. He's really hit his form. He is progressing the ball forward. He's finding Allende. He's finding Messi. He's creating chances, scoring goals, assisting goals. Everything you need for this Inter Miami attack is coming from your left back. And he's doing everything and tracking back, making recoveries, winning duels. He was barking orders. He was a leader yesterday. There was a couple times where he shouted and looked demonstrative and looked very into the game. And that's what you want from your players. And I felt Jordi Alba's been in a spectacular run of form, and he was just as good this game.
Yeah, and he gets the assist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know Tadeo Allende scores the goal, but it's because Jordi Alba put it exactly where it needs to be. It was a phenomenal play and a phenomenal cross. I agree with you. And he has not gotten enough credit, and we have not talked about this enough. And I don't think the general Inter Miami fan base has talked about this enough. But over the past couple months, he's reassumed the role he should be playing, which is this really high and wide left back. I know in the last couple of games he's had a couple of games in the midfield, but early in the season he played extraordinarily conservative. Did not make a ton of runs high up the field, and that was clearly coaching. We saw it on both sides of the pitch. It was Javier Mascherano wanting the team to be a defensive shell that kind of asked Messi and Suarez to go play high and score a bunch of goals for them while we try and figure it out defensively. I think maybe even since that second Cincinnati game or the New York Red Bulls 5-1 game, and maybe even post Club World Cup is when it kind of started. Jordi Alba's been the Jordi Alba we saw last season, and I thought this was a continuation of that. He's been awesome for a long time now, with a game or two, that you might have some criticisms of, but for the most part, he's been really good. And last night I thought was a continuation of that. So yeah, good award, and I think that's fine. Inter Miami gets 1 goal, and Jordi Alba I think was the biggest part of that. So you get the heron in the match.
Well deserved.
Okay, I am giving the heron that flew north to Luis Suarez. I thought everyone was fine yesterday. I mean that seriously. I know there was a lot of complaints about Ian Frey. I didn't really see it on the rewatch, if I'm being honest with you. Nothing spectacular, but nothing terrible. He had a couple moments. Suarez was fine, but just fine. And I thought everyone else was kind of fine to solid too. And so the reason I'm giving it to Luis Suarez is because you're supposed to be the second best player in this team. And Inter Miami needed some different angle because Sean Johnson was consistently sort of prepared for what Lionel Messi was going to provide. And Luis Suarez couldn't offer an alternative, and they needed an alternative. So Luis Suarez, not because I thought he was awful, but because I didn't think he offered much. And you're the striker. I think you need to offer a little bit more than that when Inter Miami needs a goal. So Luis Suarez.
I have no problem with it. I think you're spot on with what you said with Sean Johnson, having Messi's number per se. Another angle, different shooter, different shot type, a different anything would have provided, maybe something for Inter Miami. But I argue with you giving out the hair enough to North to Suarez. You didn't have had a game. It was nothing crazy, but would have been
He
helpful.
played a game.
He played a game. He did
Yes.
cardio for 90 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, a different angle, something to provide anything for Sean Johnson to, maybe not parry away.
And a lot of what Inter Miami did in the final third, I thought was Busquets and Messi and Alba. I just didn't think Suarez got himself involved enough in this game. He's been doing this thing where he kind of drifts to the left, and I don't love that. He's done it sometimes. Even last year, he did it sometimes, but he's been doing it more often since he came back from suspension the last 2 games. And I don't think it really suits his ability to be effective. He can put in a nice cross, we know that, but if that's not what Inter Miami's really preparing for, and if Jordi Alba is making those high and wide runs up the left side, it doesn't feel like the best use of Luis Suarez's positioning, in my opinion. But, on the same side, he did he did pull defenders out to help Messi get some space and a couple opportunities. So, again, I didn't think he was terrible, but I wanted more from him. So, Luis Suarez, hair in that flew north.
Sounds good.
Okay, Mark, what is your first award?
Oh, my first award is Mate is better than Tim Hortons award.
Mate is better than Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Tim Hortons, Canadian coffee / donut chain. The Canadian version of Dunkin' Donuts summer.
I wouldn't know. I would think more the lines of just the coffee. Just the
Okay,
coffee
coffee.
as the drink.
Okay. I don't. This is Noah Allen because he had a couple nice defensive moments.
No, this is Tadeo Allende, as mate is the famous South American drink that all these guys have before the game, and that that mug with that silver straw, and it's better than Tim Hortons. And Allende showed that as he dunked on Keon Thompson at the back post for a goal, and creating Inter Miami's first goal of the game. At that point for him, it was a big goal for his confidence, especially for Inter Miami going forward. A player that struggled as of late, seeing the ball in the back of the net twice in 3 games is a big thing. And when you don't have your striker on his A game, and you don't know if he's going to be on his A game going forward, this is something you want from your second striker per se, or someone you can bring in as a sub. To have that confidence to put the ball away, and going forward for Inter Miami in these games, you can't keep it 1-1. You can't keep it 1-0. You need to find goals and put teams away for goal differential purposes and playoff purposes.
Yeah, I actually did not have a particularly positive vibe on Tadeo Allende yesterday. Credit where credit's due from his, he gets a goal. But I thought the rest of his performance was pretty bad, and he probably would have been my hair in that flew north if it wasn't for the goal. I don't want to see him wide anymore. I just don't. He can be a replacement for Suarez. He can be a striker when you need bodies forward. Maybe there's a role for him, but it's just his wide play is so bad. And I just spent this game thinking, especially the rewatch, why is it not Talasco Segovia on the field right now? Why is it Tadeo Allende? He hasn't deserved it. He hasn't earned it. I know he gives you the goal, but the overall performance I thought was pretty poor. And I need him back on the bench on Saturday because he can't be the guy that starts every game from here until Silvetti comes back. I just can't have that. So I don't know. Maybe Tim Hortons is better than Mate.
That I'm giving him the award on the goal. That's his performance. Yes, was spotty, but that goal, without it, we don't have any goals. So at that point, he did us a favor.
Yeah, and he doesn't. He gets credit for the goal, certainly.
Yeah, that's where my award is based around because I agree with you with what you say.
We saw this against Orlando City in the Leagues Cup semifinal with Jordi Alba putting crosses into the back post. Tadeo Allende being a threat there. That's how Inter Miami got the red or the second yellow that turned into a red for Brecalo for Orlando City, and Inter Miami goes up a man, and then they end up winning that semifinal because of it. That's a dangerous pattern of play that Inter Miami maybe should be exploring more. But honestly, I'm tired of Allende in the starting 11. The other thing I want to say, and this is just an embarrassing admission, but honesty is the best policy for us at the Driving Dialogue. A couple months ago, we tracked Allende at 11 goals. And then we kind of have been talking about him every time he gets a goal. Okay, now it's 12, it's 13, it's 14, it's 15. Someone in the comments section yesterday after the Raw reaction mentioned that we were wrong on our math. And this is not a you, Mark. This is a me and Soar. He must have been on 7 goals when we started tracking because he's only on 13 goals now. I think I said he had 16 yesterday, which, again, bad on me. Man, that makes a difference because if he's getting close to 20 goals, that's like almost no matter how you slice it, that's a great season. Even with all of the poor moments, you could see him getting another 2 goals for the rest of the season and finishing on 18. Like, that's a great season, almost regardless of how you slice it. 13 goals actually changes my entire opinion on his season because that's not that, Suarez is giving us more than that. Velasco Segovia is probably on the same goals per minute basis as Tadeo Allende. So, I'm just saying this because I've been wrong when I've been saying this over the last couple of weeks, and I want you guys to know it was an honest mistake, and I'm going to be, have fixed it and acknowledging that. But also, like Tadeo Allende, he's just, I can't see him wide anymore. I thought he had a couple of okay games playing as that striker in front instead of Suarez, but he goes back out wide, and it's just a disaster. So, I don't know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I agree. He's not his only attribute or ability that he provides going wide is being able to make a vertical run. Is a poor first touch. He can't read the game very well. His passes are very off-weighted, or he just loses possession every time he touches the ball. So, as a sub is where he fits. I'm by no means saying he needs to be an out-and-out starter. I believe there are players like Segovia, Silvetti, when he eventually comes back, that fill that void, that spot perfectly fine.
Okay, I'm going to move on because I don't want to say anything I regret.
No.
But my first award, and because I had an award for Allende, going to the next one, I'm giving the Keychain Award.
The Keychain Award. Something that belongs in your pocket. Something that you hold your keys to. Let's see. The keychain. Something that holds keys to unlock a defense. I'm going to go with Ian Frey. He was the keychain who had a couple keys in his pocket for Toronto's attack on that right side.
I'm giving it to Sergio Busquets because a keychain doesn't unlock anything, but it does hold all of the keys together. And Sergio Busquets is not the key. Lionel Messi is the key, and Suarez is the key, and maybe Baltasar from out wide is the key, and Jordi Alba putting it across his tail. Those are the keys. But the chain that links them all together, keeps it all functioning, is Sergio Busquets. And he was substituted out of yesterday's game for the first time in God knows how long, potentially all season. And Inter Miami was not able to be particularly dangerous in the last 10 minutes. I think Sergio Busquets being off the field is a big part of that. What did you think of Sergio Busquets getting subbed out in a game that was tied So Yannick Bright comes in for him, better defensively, but not as prolific, pushing the ball forward and being an effective piece. In ball progression and dangerous getting into the final third. What did you think of Busquets getting taken out?
I thought it was the wrong decision. Like you just said, he's the chain that holds everything together. He is our best ball progressor from that midfield line. In a game that's 1-1, you need to keep him in the game because he can find any moment of space, any moment of brilliance with a simple ball over the top, a clipped ball over the top, a ball between center backs. So I would have taken out De Paul and put in Yannick Bright for him and let Busquets operate a little bit higher up the pitch and sit Yannick Bright run in front of our two center backs and let Busquets just operate for those final, what is it, 25 minutes, I believe. They got subbed off in the 71st.
Yeah, it was the 71st minute.
So
Cello
for those final
and
20, yeah, those final 20, 22 minutes, I would have had Busquets just operate higher up the pitch and trying to find anything that he can.
When he came off, where you see on the sideline, you see Bright and Cello preparing to come on, and I didn't think Ian Frey was having a phenomenal game, so not a surprise that Cello was coming on. But I thought it was 1,000% going to be Tadeo Allende who came off. We had gotten our production from him, and he wasn't having really any impact in the second half. If anything, he was kind of a net negative. So I was shocked it wasn't Tadeo Allende, and you switch into that three-man midfield, gives you a little bit more control of the midfield, which they had not established at any point in the first 70 minutes. And ultimately, that's not the substitution. It's Busquets out and it's Yannick Bright in, and you're chasing a goal. You guys all know we love Yannick Bright, but Busquets is the guy that's more likely to help create a goal than Tadeo Allende, even though Allende had already scored a goal. So I thought that was a really crazy decision. And as Janet says in the chat, there is no substitute for Busquets with his influence, and it's part of controlling the game. And I didn't think Inter Miami did a particularly good job of that in the final 10 minutes of this game, when they could have really used him. You're on mute.
Hello. Sorry. I felt he could have been utilized in those final 10 minutes in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, just holding the ball, progressing, finding the right read, finding the right pass, drawing in a defender with his eyes, and just playing another ball over the top or anything like that. So I'm not sure why he was subbed off.
Especially considering the circumstances of his impending retirement, which we also didn't mention. We talked about this last week as, it was first sort of reported, but we certainly hadn't had final confirmation or confirmation from a reporter that we really trust. Now that we know it's going to be his end, I'm really surprised that he's coming off at all. So I don't know. I didn't like it. Anyways, what is your second award?
And the second award I have prepared is the grape leaf amongst maple leaves. Maple leaves. I can't remember where I put.
The grape leaf amongst maple leaves. Really leaned into the Canadian vibe here.
I did. I was full Canadian.
Yeah, let's see. Who deserves an award? The grape leaf. What is that about? It's Rodrigo de Paul, because he went into Canada and he looked out of place. He was a leaf going into the Canadian forest, and he looked out of place, just like a grape leaf would in a forest of maple trees.
That's a good one. I'm going with nationalities back on this one. The grape leaf, famous in Greek culture, Greek cooking. Noah Allen, I felt, was the best defender on the pitch, best defender in Canada yesterday. Really showing out and putting on a performance amongst the Maple Leafs, allowing Jordi Alba to really get up wide and attacking. Great recovery runs, great and standing up attackers, making good tackles on Etienne, on Cifuentes, clearing the ball when he could, holding possession, progressing the ball forward. I thought Noah Allen had a good game in the back line for Inter Miami.
I agree. I thought he was good. And maybe on Wednesday night against NYCFC, I had a few moments that I think he would have wanted back. I think if there's anyone that took a step forward from Wednesday to yesterday afternoon, it was Noah Allen. I thought he played really well. And I think there's like a world where we score another goal and we win, and we're just talking about good vibes and happy performances. And Noah Allen is a much more prominent part of our conversation. I am so nervous that Mascherano is going to go back to Gonzalo Lujan that I'm like hyper analyzing Noah Allen's performances because I need him to not just be good, but so good that you can't take him off the field. And I thought he played to that level yesterday. So give me Noah Allen for here until forever, and I think I'll be much happier. Good award, and I think he was really good and deserved to be recognized.
I agree.
Okay, last award. The Riddler and his Riddle. The Riddler and his Riddle Award.
The Riddler and his Riddle. Riddler with Batman has these.
Let me clarify. In this hypothetical or in this scenario, Javier Mascherano is the Riddler.
The Riddler and his riddles. That's what you said, correct?
And his riddle. His one riddle.
And his riddle. I'm thinking Ian Frey because Ian Frey's the riddle that you can't solve. That if you can't get it right, or if he has a bad answer, a bad guess, or a bad game, he's in. He's gonna put Jello back in there.
The Riddler, Batman villain. So I would really love this one. He's a criminal, which is exactly what Javier Mascherano is from a footballing perspective. No, but the more serious side is what has happened to Lasco Segovia? Because he was a locked-in starter and one of our more exciting and enthusiastic players, a young player, one of the few that came in and was actually really impactful for so much of this season, and then seemingly got benched out of nowhere and has become a bench player for Inter Miami for weeks now. Not a game or two, but for weeks he hasn't been a starter. And this is a really talented player, and I'm very confused. He comes off the bench. He gets his 25, 30 minutes every game, and he's clearly still a part of the plan, and he's someone Inter Miami and Javier Mascherano still have faith in, unlike other guys like Afafa Picault. But in my opinion, Baltasar Rodriguez has not shown he is like an instant starter. I like Matteo Silvetti. I think of all of the options, he's the guy I'm happy to give more minutes to. Tadeo Allende, I don't really have anything positive to say about him right now. And somehow Lasco Segovia is getting the short end of the starting stick. So that's the riddle that Javier Mascherano has presented to us. Why is Lasco Segovia no longer a starter?
It's a riddle that I wish I had the answer to, but I don't. I agree, man. I felt Lasco Segovia in that first part of the season, that first half of the season, I should say, was really, really good at progressing the ball when he was playing centrally. Struggled when playing really wide. But now that we see Jordi Alba back to this kind of, his regular form and the form that we know that Jordi Alba is, and just getting wide and attacking, Segovia can play centrally and allow another player like Silvetti to come on the right for an Allende. And I just don't know why Segovia's not being used more often, or why he's now being deployed to the bench in only 25 minutes in the last two games, in his last two starts, or his last two appearances.
Well, and he's also he's not the type of profile that you think would come onto the field and have an instant spark, right? He's not a freaky athletic guy. He's not a guy that's going to dominate against tired legs. He's a control, good pace, good decision-making type of player that you would think you'd want out there from the start. And if anything, it would be in the 60th minute that you would throw on a Tadeo Allende because he gives you like a different dimension. I am very confused on why seemingly Lasco Segovia has become a bench player, because I think he's one of he's the fifth or sixth best player on this team. I guess sixth or seventh now that De Paul's here, although I don't know how I feel about that one. He should be playing more. He should be playing more. And I didn't like it when he was getting taken off every game in the 60th minute, and I really don't like it when he's not even getting a chance to start. This is a really good player. I don't know if he's going to be here long. I remember what he did against some of the best teams in the world, and it was fantastic. And he feels like as we're heading into the playoffs, he might be a bench player that's not particularly impactful at all. And I think that's crazy because he's just too talented for that. And beyond that, he spent the first half of the season, or the first 3 quarters of the season, figuring out how to play with these guys. So going back to our conversation about Baltasar, he's still figuring out how to make all of this work because he hasn't had a ton of minutes with these guys. Telasco does, and yet he's the guy that got relegated. I'm really struggling to understand how we got into this situation, if I'm being honest.
I agree. I feel he should be on the pitch. It takes him longer to get into the game than it does for Allende, especially because different skill sets and different type of roles are asked to play. And Telasco needs that ball on his feet, needs to be creative with it, needs to find the channels, needs to find passages of play, needs to find triangulations, while other players are just sparks off the bench. Telasco can, he's that spark, but he's starting, and when he starts, he's effective.
I don't know what else to say other than it's stupefying me, if I'm being totally honest. Okay, is there anyone else you want to talk about for this game? I mean, we are flying through, but it was not a game that I thought had a ton of intrigue. We should obviously mention Lionel Messi, who I thought was really good. He probably would have been my man of the match, but I think it's, Jordi Alba's fine. He did not convert anything, but he created the opportunities you want him to create. He wasn't afraid to take the chances. He put a few through balls in that either a guy stopped running for or was, half a yard too far or whatever. Didn't come off for him. He gets the pre-assist on the Tadeo Allende goal. Like, I thought he was fine. I have no concerns about him at all. And I didn't even think this was a low-level game for him. Obviously, you want to see him get 3-goal contributions a game, but if that's not going to happen, this is a performance I can live with, and I think Inter Miami can still be successful with. Let me rephrase that. Inter Miami should still be able to be successful if Lionel Messi is doing what he did yesterday, which maybe we should have that conversation, because why does Inter Miami need Lionel Messi to be God in order to win games?
I think they needed to be God because the system put in place is so far off what it was last year and so dependent on Messi this year that last year you had guys just stepping up left and right, and this year you had so many guys in and out of the lineup and just no consistency with the team. So it's just solely dependent on Messi. And if Messi has a game like this, which is not a bad game by any means, he just couldn't find the back of the net, you should be able to have other guys, find the goal. But as we spoke about, Suarez wasn't able to find it. And he's your second best player, quote unquote. You need things to fall for you when Messi's not finding 2 goals a game.
Messi last season, it's a different team. I get that. But Inter Miami was just as efficient in accumulating points last year without Messi as they were with Messi. Now, that doesn't mean they were as good without Messi as they were with Messi. Obviously, the huge blowouts and the 6-1, 6-2s, 5-0, those came with Messi on the pitch last year. But in terms of how many points you accumulated with and without Lionel Messi, they were equally as effective. And this year it feels like they've had Messi more, they've gotten less points overall. But specifically in the games where Messi isn't directly impactful on the score sheet with a goal or assist, those are the games that Inter Miami really struggles in. And it does feel like Inter Miami needs him on the pitch and playing well for the rest of the team to rise up to that level. And if he's not that, if he's just a human being that day, the rest of the guys, they can't come through and sort of pick him up, with the occasional exception of a Jordi Alba performance. What's that about?
I just think there's just lack of continuity in the team with guys, that you're expecting to help and come through are now on the bench, i.e. Segovia, and can't get, minutes to help and can't get the moments to help. So it's difficult to find those moments when Baltasar can't get going or when Silvetti can't get going, who are 2 young guys who were just brought in. And Allende's been...
this is an unfair conversation to have and put on you. Like,
Yeah.
this is a huge big picture issue, and it's not just yesterday. It's something that we've seen a lot this year, but it's just another reminder that this is something that's clearly a part of this Inter Miami team that has not been the case in 2024. They found a way to make this team good even without Messi, and then they added Messi and became phenomenal. This team is just good with Messi, and that, I think, is, again, goes back to the roster building, goes back to the coaching strategy, and the philosophy that this team has tried to play with this season. Anyways, Messi was fine. I have no complaints about Messi. I saw some complaints about Ian Frey yesterday. I thought he was fine. Like, didn't have any like huge moments, but I thought he had a couple positive moments, a couple moments he probably want back. But on the whole, he was solid. Falcone, I thought, was another fine game. We've seen him be much worse, so I'm okay with him. Ustari, I don't know. Anyone else you want to talk about?
De Paul.
Yeah, I was saving him for last.
I mean, well, we can speak about Baltasar as the next one I was going to bring up. Do you think he played himself out of the lineup and maybe Segovia gets the start on Tuesday? How do you think Baltasar was effective? Is what I should say. This game against Toronto.
I think there are people that see something in Baltasar that I don't see, if I'm being honest. And I get he's technical and there's some flash to his game, and man, he's had a banger of a goal, and he's not afraid to take a shot from outside the box. Like, there are like traits that I like about him. But there are other aspects to his game that I'm not particularly impressed with, that other people seem to be more impressed with or not seem to notice, or whatever it is. So my baseline for Baltasar is lower than I think a lot of people. So I thought he was totally normal yesterday. And then he didn't have the big moment. He did have an opportunity where I think Messi puts him through on goal. He gets chased down by the defenders, not able to get a real shot off. But aside from that, I thought he was not particularly impactful, and I would have liked to see him play a little deeper to help with ball progression in a way that he didn't. But like, I'm not overly impressed with Baltasar Rodriguez as a player.
Okay. I agree. He's not that I'm not impressed with him as a player. I just feel he can do a little more to help this team rather than just being that out-and-out winger and solely offense. As I think I said it last week, maybe when I did the post-game show, all offense, no defense. There are aspects that he can help out this team. And if you're going to be put into start, when you know that you have a guy like Segovia on the bench, and at any given moment, that next week is not going to be you. I think you need to do a lot more in helping out when Messi can't find the back of the net. You need to be more active in the creativity of the offense and looking even for your shot at times.
Yeah, and well, the thing for Baltasar, and by the way, I don't want to be too negative. Just because I'm not overly impressed with him doesn't mean I think he's a terrible player. Like, he's fine, and I'd rather see him on the field than Tadeo Allende in one of those wide spots. But what I will say for Baltasar is there's not options. You have Allende, you have Baltasar, and you have Telasco Segovia. That's it right now, because Salvetti's gone for the U20 World Cup. Benjamin Kermascu, who we saw play a couple games out wide this year, he's gone. Fafa Picault is gone mentally from Javier Mascherano's decision-making. And then Robert Taylor, Leo Alfonso, Julian Gress, like, all these guys are gone. So they don't have options, really. You have 3 options, and you have to pick 2 of them, and Allende doesn't even feel like an option to me. So I would like to see Baltasar start on the right and Telasco start on the left, or vice versa. But those would be my 2 wide players next game, or go into a situation where you play with 3 in the midfield, and then maybe it is just Baltasar as like a left winger in a 4-3-3. That I could be on board with, even today. Allende, but the way they're set up right now with this 4-4-2, or at least they have been for the last 2 games and have been for much of this season, it's clearly what Javier Mascherano prefers. Inter Miami doesn't have a ton of options. So, I know you're saying there's competition with Telasco, but it doesn't feel that way right now to me.
I agree. I mean, I agree in the sense that Mascherano, really doesn't know what he's going to do in that position. But I would agree with you in saying that you prefer to see Baltasar on one wing and then Telasco on the other, and having Allende on the bench.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm at with Baltasar. He's like I'm intrigued by him as a player, but I don't think if we were going straight up and this was a realistic conversation, which is not how I think Javier Mascherano does this. Like I would start Telasco over Baltasar if it was just a 1-for-1 on Wednesday night. Okay, let's talk about DePaul because he was the other guy I considered for Heron that flew north alongside Suarez. What's the deal with this guy? What is he? What everyone says he's so good, and I watch him game in and game out playing 90 minutes, and I am like trying to find the positives. He's been worse than Yannick Bright since he arrived. He's not been even close to the Jordi Albas or the Sergio Busquets of Inter Miami. Like he plays in a way that would be like a good, like a nice game from a Benjamin Kramaski or David Ruiz. And by the way, I want to shout out the Bad Adherents because they mentioned this yesterday, and I was like, this is right. Benjamin Kramaski, when he played like a nice solid game, that's what it looks like from Rodrigo de Paul. He's like running around like 28, 20, 23, Benjamin Kramaski. That's what de Paul looks like. And he's supposed to be way better than that. So I don't know. Talk to me off a ledge, man. I had to watch this game twice, so maybe I'm in a bad mood.
No, I mean, we spoke about this last week when I saw flashbacks defensively, but this week I did not see it. And there was a lot of running on the pitch. I'm still waiting for the Atletico Madrid Rodrigo de Paul to show up. I don't know if we have to put an Argentini kid on him or something to get him going, but he's been a shell of the player that we bought and we expected him to become. And I'm really disappointed in that. I tried to find the good with all the bad that we see from him, but he's just had very average games and just nothing screams out the price that we paid for him.
Okay, I want to be clear. Inter Miami's going to buy him because that's what this is. That's what this is. But if this was a normal loan move for a player that you were going to try out for 6 months and then decide whether you wanted to make him a DP, he would not be bought based on his performances. He's a superstar. He's world champion. Like they're going to buy him, obviously. That's what this is. But if it wasn't, and if this was just a straight 6-month loan, and then we'll decide at the end of 6 months, they wouldn't buy him based on the current form. And that is a crazy indictment. And it's not the $17 million because it could be $5 million, but it's the DP slot. He hasn't been playing that well. Sean says in the chat, RDP's looking a lot like Redondo. Like I don't get it. And I'm going to stop talking because I'm just going to say things I regret. But man, he's been a disappointment compared to the expectations.
It's frustrating when you've had other center mids come through this team that have looked 10 times the player he is. And, Diego Gomez is one. John Malta is another one. John Malta and De Paul are pretty equal right now. The John Malta great performances is what De Paul's putting out right now.
Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of John Malta either, but
he had
certainly
some
like
wicked
a Gregory.
Free kicks.
Well, yeah, 1 out of 1,000. Gregory was certainly a more impactful player as a DP than Rodrigo de Paul. Okay, let's get to the bigger picture. And that's the Supporter Shield race, the Eastern Conference race. Inter Miami drops 2 points yesterday, which could come back to bite them. But a couple of results went their way last night. And so I think Inter Miami's still in an okay position. The Philadelphia Union went to D.C., or rather played D.C., and whipped them upside the field. They won that game 6-0, which does hurt Inter Miami's opportunities to surpass them on goal differential. With Inter Miami's 4-0 win in the midweek against NYCFC, they had actually overtaken Philadelphia in the goal differential category, but Philadelphia gets a 6-0 win last night. So that's probably out of reach for Inter Miami. FC Cincinnati, who's playing in 5 minutes against Orlando City. That's their last big game. NYCFC overtakes Inter Miami on the table, but that's not really something I think Inter Miami needs to worry about considering the games in hand, as well as any other team below them. So Inter Miami still alive for the Supporters Shield race, but it looks like Philadelphia is the team. A couple other results in the Western Conference went Inter Miami's way as well. San Diego loses, so they're probably done. Like, that loss probably cost them the Shield. And then Vancouver drops another 2 points. So Inter Miami probably not having to worry about the Western Conference in this Supporters Shield table. I think the winner of the East wins the Supporters Shield. How do you feel about the situation right now? Actually, let me just clarify with this. Philadelphia can get 69 points if they win out. Inter Miami can get 68 points if they win out. Cincinnati can get 67 points if they win out, including that game that's about to start. And then Vancouver, still technically alive, can get 66 points if they win out. So Inter Miami, all they need is Philadelphia to have one draw, and they're back to controlling their own destiny.
A lot of scoreboard watching for sure from here on out. I feel, relatively good and relatively comfortable with the schedule that we have. Hoping for a slip up from Philadelphia. So if Inter Miami are able to find performances just like the New York one and put those for another 4 games, anything can happen. You're just hoping Philadelphia slips up down the road. I want it to be done. I just don't know what we're going to do from a managerial standpoint in those games. That's the only thing that worries me.
So you don't have a lot of confidence. Let's start with this. Inter Miami has 4 games left, 12 potential points. They play the New England Revolution to start off. No, sorry. They play Chicago Fire to start off this Wednesday. They play the New England Revolution next Saturday. Atlanta United the following Saturday. All 3 of those games are at home. You would like your chances, and as you can see on screen, and I apologize for those on audio, Chicago, the only team in the playoff picture from all of those. They're in 9th place, barely in the playoff picture. The New England Revolution are in 11th, and Atlanta United 14th in the table. And then they finish at Nashville. And I've been saying this for a while. If that game is meaningful, I think Inter Miami will go on the road and beat Nashville. If that game's not meaningful, it becomes a competitive game, and who knows. But if that game is like for the Supporter Shield, I think Inter Miami you'd feel comfortable with them going and figuring out how to get those 3 points. But are they going to be in that position? How do you feel about these last 4 games for Inter Miami? Where do you think they're going to land? Like, what are your expectations?
I am expecting us to win all 4. I'll be very honest. With the talent we have, and if we are in the right mindset and with our leader and captain leading, it'll be done. I will be going to that Chicago game, so you can mark it off as a win. And then after that, we have 3 left. And that Nashville game, if it's for the Supporter Shield, it's the big one. And Nashville team that's struggled as of late. They're not the team that they were in the beginning of the season or the team that we know of. I expect us to go in and win that Supporter Shield if it's there. It all depends on Philadelphia, realistically. If they win out their games, I believe you said if they win out their games, they win it on 69 points. We'll finish second with 68 if we win ours.
So let's just stick with Inter Miami. They have 12 potential points left in those 4 games. They look on paper like 12 points is there for them, but as I'm repeatedly reminded in the chat every time I bring this up, and for good reason, Inter Miami hasn't won 4 games in a row since that first stretch of the season. The last time they won 4 games in a row was March 29th. So do we trust them to actually take care of business, even if the schedule's favorable, even if it lines up well for them? I don't know. You feel confident about them?
I do feel confident. And I think it's more based off the 11 we put on the pitch rather than what's on the sideline, and specifically our number 10, and wanting to right the ship of last year and make this Supporter Shield a one that's feels a little more earned than last year.
I think if Inter Miami gets 68 points, they're going to win the Supporter Shield. I do. Philadelphia has 2 games left. Obviously, it can get to 69, but those 2 games are against NYCFC and Charlotte. I think they're going to drop points in one of those two games. So I think if Inter Miami gets 68 points, they'll win the Supporters Shield. I don't know if I trust this team to go do it. You know, as Wookie mentions in the chat, Chicago just beat Columbus. They'll be tough. It's at home. I think they'll be fine. But, you know, the Atlanta United game, Telasco Segovia is on international duty. Silvetti's been on international duty. De Paul. Like, we're going to be missing some guys. Like, there's just enough here that I feel like with this team and the lack of ability to just consistently do it, I think they're going to drop more points here. And it wouldn't surprise me if they finish with like 64 points, which would be 8 from their final 4 games, which would be kind of a disappointment when it still feels like it's right there for them. And again, if they win out, Philadelphia is the only team that could beat them, and they have Philadelphia has the toughest remaining schedule. So it's still right there for them. I think they had a little bit of wiggle room. I think they spent the wiggle room yesterday. Like, they had maybe 2 points to drop, and they dropped them yesterday, which means now you have to go be perfect. And if they do that, I think they're going to win the Supporter Shield. And if they don't, and I'm not necessarily confident that they will, I think it's going to be pretty tough.
What a better way to be perfect in the final 4 games. You know, you said they were perfect in March for 4 games. It's a good time to be perfect in October for 4 games. September, October, yeah.
Yes.
I know you're thinking.
Yes, I am nervous. Okay, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. We'll wrap it up there. A little bit of a shorter episode, but I'm not sure this game deserved a ton more. Please tell everyone where they can find you as we say goodbye.
You guys can find me Wednesday nights on YouTube on the Kendall Sports Network in our False 9 Inter Miami show. You can follow me on X, F9 Mark, active there, Inter Miami. Love engaging with fans and lovers of football and Inter Miami communities and all that stuff. So go ahead and give me a follow there.
Before we go, Sir Akti asked thoughts on the Golden Boot race. Denny Bouanga did score a goal last night, so and so did Sam Surridge. Messi still top of the table for the Golden Boot with 24, Bouanga with 23, and in incredible form, and Sam Surridge with 22. You feel confident about Messi, or you think Bouanga might take it?
Messi's got 2 more braces in him in the final 4 games. He'll solidify it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. For those that don't know, LAFC has 4 games left, just like Miami. So could come down to the wire. But guys, thank you so much. We'll wrap it up there. As always, I hope you have a great night. We'll be back for that midweek game and the pregame show. And until then, sleep well and take care of yourselves. We'll see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.